welcome everyone for a very special roundtable discussion. So usually you see this format with What's Your Story, but this afternoon I'm sitting down with our favorite people from upstairs, Miss Terri and Miss Lyn, children's librarian Terri Bald or Teresa.
Terry's good.
And assistant Lynn Smith. And because of one of the very special awards that you sometimes see on fiction books and nonfiction books, but mostly fiction books, the Newbery Award this year celebrates 100 years of that particular award. And so I thought it would be really fun if we could sort of pick the brains of our children's librarians and get a little bit of information about the Newbery Award and sort of what it means, a little bit of background. So welcome to our set.
Thank you, Mary Lou.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So 100 years ago, can you imagine? And it was, I always thought the Newbery Award came from the man himself, but it was actually somebody else that sort of wanted to have it named after this really special person. Right. So do you want to talk a little bit about the background of that, Terri?
I was really interested to learn a little bit about this Frederick Melter. And this was really near and dear to my heart. When Frederick was young, he could not go to the library enough. He absolutely loved reading, loved going to the library. And he grew up outside of Boston. And again, so books were near and dear to him. When he was 16, he started actually his career, his lifelong career in book publishing background. And he became really well known in the industry as being pretty much the man in the publishing industry. So he came up with this idea in 21. He proposed to the American Library Association that they needed to have an award to honor children's literature.
Yay!
And yes, yes. He may have had a little bit of a vested interest being a book publisher and promoting children's books, but nonetheless, we think it was an awesome idea. And he thought that it should be named after someone named John Newbery, who was an English bookseller who wrote, printed the very first book called A Pretty Little Pocket Book, I believe, or something like that. The first book, yes. Yeah. So anyway, it was named after the English bookseller, John Newbery. And since then, here we are 100 years later, and we all wait with bated breath, like first thing in the morning. You can't wait to get in and see, like, who won? And there's many other awards besides the Newbery, but we're talking today specifically about the Newbery.
Yep. And so, and that's quite a process.
Yes, it is.
And it's changed a little bit here and there, but when it's not just one person picking the book for everybody.
Right.
So, how many people?
Geez, I'm not even sure exactly how many are on the committee. Do you know?
I don't know.
15.
It's quite a.
I think it's about 15, or what I remember. 15 people that are on the committee, and they read and read and read, and
then read a little more.
And then they read a little more.
They do, absolutely.
And so, and I tried to put myself into the room of when it gets down to that final grouping of who's gonna win the big. I mean, because that medal means a lot. Yes. The gold one, especially, but even the silver ones, the honorees. So they used to call them runner-up. And now they've changed that to honors, which I think, really gives it a little bit more to the honors because they're just as special.
Right.
I do too.
Sometimes more, in my opinion.
That's a good point.
So what is it? So when you're waiting with bated breath for that book to be announced, what is it? What's going through your mind? Do you think, okay, all the books that I've read this year,
right? sometimes I try to predict. You can't help, like, there's so much on the internet these days where you can basically go online and there'll be predictions, or these are the books on watch. But boy, you never know. Sometimes you're really surprised.
Yeah.
You really are. I know that they've made, in recent years, a better effort to have more diverse books. The category of fantasy has not always been well represented over the years. So
Yeah.
I think they try to take this all into account when they're choosing a winner. I mean, when you go back 100 years, sometimes it's just amazing, like, where the world is, like, what's happening in the
That's such a good
world.
point.
You look back at some of the winners and you go, oh my God, those books wouldn't fly today. But again, it's hard to judge a book that was popular 100 years ago and today. And then some of them are still endearing classics.
Right.
But there's been a few along the way that
Yeah.
probably would be pretty questionable today.
And you talked a little bit about that a little while ago with me when you remember the ones that you read years ago,
Exactly.
not 100 years ago,
Thank you,
but the ones that have kind of stayed with you.
Yes, and that's a good point. Terry and I were also discussing this too, that yesterday I went around the library and I looked at the 100 years of medal winners and started pulling from the shelves here at Graves. There are a lot of them that are here and are checked out and are asked for during the summer. We had returning people who were here for the summer and were asking for books that they enjoyed as a young person. And I remember one of them was Johnny Tremaine. And I thought that was probably part of the social studies curriculum, or maybe it was just something that was going to be read that year when I was in school. And it has stayed with me. It had a huge impact on me. And then there are other years when I was scrolling through the 100 titles thinking, I don't remember that. And why don't I remember that?
Yeah.
So then I think books are personal to our beliefs and our interests. And I thought maybe the ones that are fantasy were not something that I looked at. It was not a genre that personally I was attracted to. And I thought, okay, let's just keep digging. And I know here on the stand, Dr. Dolittle was awarded the Newbery, I think that was 1923 when that was there. And some people today are even questioning, what do we do with books like this? And I think they stay on the shelf, or if a library feels that it needs to be in an archive room, okay, but I think it's still there for an option for children to have. That story might evoke something for someone that they may not even have reached for, but having it on the library shelf gives someone that choice.
Yeah.
So I thought that was fascinating to look through the different titles. I know you had printed them out too, Terry.
So when you were bringing your kids to the library as young children, was that something that you once a year said, hey, the Newbery Award, there's the medal, we need to read this book?
Yes, as a parent, but also when I was in the school, when I was a school librarian, it was a really big deal.
Yeah.
The award-winning books. I just find it so fast. This is just a little aside, but this just cracked me up because I love E.B. White. I really, really love E.B. White. And this was just something that really cracked me up because, the night before the awards, I'm sure there's many authors out there that are really, I'm
Making
waiting
sure
with
their
bated
phone
breath, but
works.
they're trying to make sure
Falling
that they're
asleep.
ready, waiting for that phone call. And
Big deal.
E.B. White, in 1971, the book that won was The Summer of the Swans. And E.B. White's book was The Trumpet of the Swans. And he said, one word off. And I just thought, that is so
great.
perfect.
Especially him
Just so perfect. 'cause,
saying that.
I mean, but again,
Yeah.
they're both winning books. But I guess just trying to put it in perspective, there's so many great authors out there. And just because the book didn't win, as we all know, there's
Right.
so many great books out there.
And I think there's been some surprises over the years too, and that comes down to, I think, the committee, right? So whoever's on the committee, I picture that as the jury, and they're in the room, and you've got the form person might have a strong arm, might not, but there's somebody that really wants this particular book to win the award that year. Sometimes it can come down to, the who's got the best argument for why a book should be picked. So I think when Frog and Toad won, I think that might have been the year that Charlotte's Web was also in the pool.
I think.
It was more than one word off that year.
Oh, exactly.
There were a few words off that year. Sorry.
So I know somebody that was actually on that committee that year.
Oh, wow.
And
That's wonderful.
and sitting in a class with her, and the whole class was like, "What were you thinking?" We were all shocked. I mean, yeah, I love Frog and Toad.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but
know.
there are certain books that you've read, right, and you say this is gonna be it,
Right.
and sometimes it's not. So
Like this book here, New Kid,
Yes.
Jerry Craft. As we all know, if I had to say what's my bread and butter upstairs, our bread and butter is graphic novels.
Yeah.
Kids love them. Parents sometimes not as much. But graphic novels, I'm giving a little plug here. There's some great graphic novels.
and they're an entire book.
And it's an entire book. And the New Kid won a couple years ago. And it is such a great book. And it's really got some great messages. It's not just fluff. So again, I was really glad that this won because I felt like, okay, graphic novels are getting recognized.
Is that the first time a graphic novel won?
It might have been.
I'm
I'm
gonna-
pretty
I
sure.
don't know if I
you
can
know,
say concretely yes, but
I'm
I
thinking
think
it might
I
have
be. I do.
been.
I have to
That's
think
You
there's
know,
a
I'm
list
looking
of
at the big list, but
But that was the year you went,
yes, I was because I just thought, Kids Across America, which does make you wonder too. I know there's been a lot of discussions about, the committees that you were talking about, the 15 people, what makes up the committee and how they choose the book. But sometimes, I've read comments or heard, input on the internet. Maybe they should have a child participate as well. Children are the audience.
yeah.
What-
And we do have that here in Maine, right?
Exactly. So maybe it would be nice to have at least one or two children represented. It would be interesting to see would the choices change that much. I don't know.
Right, because that's the thing that I think we all have to think about is who is the audience,
Yes.
right? So whenever you're talking about a book like Dr. Dolittle, or I'll hear parents say, well, there's no such thing as a flying dragon. Well, was there when you were 10? So thinking about the age or, who that book is going to speak to. So now you've got this one also. Is that a favorite?
Not of mine. I think Lynn pulled that. That was last year's
Yeah.
winner.
Yeah.
I personally have to admit I have not read this book, but I'm not saying that this is unfortunately, we promoted this book. It was a winning book, really played up. And this book has never been checked out.
Wow.
So this is a challenge to anyone out there.
we love
Seriously, we need someone.
We need someone
to come in. I'll read it. You could read it. Miss Lyn will read it. Mary Lou will read it. We'll have a little book discussion about it because it just makes me sad to think that this won last year. And of course, I haven't read it yet either, but I'm going to. But on the other hand, New Kids. Let's just take a look. And again, this was 220, so this is newer, but it's been checked out quite a bit. Of course, the one thing we do have to factor in, as I'm saying, no one's checked this out, is there's been this little thing going on called COVID, and that does affect circulation, and we just haven't had as many people coming in, so that could also be playing into why When You Trap a Tiger hasn't gone out as much.
Right,
We're
right.
not having the school visits,
Right.
and,
Yeah.
so it probably would have gone out a lot more.
So, Terry, when you're doing book reviews, you go through some of the journals, the the professional journals that we get here at the library. What do you look for when you're looking for books for
You mean book ordering when I do my book
yeah,
ordering?
and you do fantastic.
She does.
Hands
Thank you.
down,
Thank you.
fantastic.
Thank you. I really do try to look at a lot of things. I look at journals, but even there's something called the Sybil's Award that comes out, and it's by book bloggers. I try to take a peek at that.
Yeah.
I look at the journals. I'll look at the New York Times lists. I'll look at Publishers Weekly. I mean, I'll talk to kids. I really, when the kids come in, I try to talk to kids. So I'm just trying to get out there and see what's out. I also get a lot, like way too many on my phone. You know. I'm connected with a lot of different groups.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
And so, you know, this is embarrassing to say, but I have like a lot on my phone at the moment. But, you know, I'm always information, you know, I'll see a tidbit here and there. And then when I come in on Monday, make notes of what to order.
Yeah.
So I try to have a broad range of books here.
And before the pandemic, you were regularly going up to Portland Library once a month. Can you talk a little bit about that?
That's wonderful. Dedicated librarians in Maine, we'd get together. They're still get together virtually, but we have Cream of the Crop. So that's kind of Maine's version, if you will, of the Caldecott in Newbery, and review books. You
take a
would
stack.
Take a stack of books. You'd go back and read it. Then you'd come back in and you'd book talk the book. And really helpful hearing from your peers. You know, like sometimes you'll read a review and maybe it just, you know, like part of it is geographic where
Right.
you live. A lot of it is your community. So I think the balance when I'm ordering books is that you want to make sure that you have a diverse collection of books because you want your community to experience things that they don't experience. So you want to have that. But then you also want to have books that speak to your local audience as well and that are going to get checked out. And I find that the meetings with fellow librarians across the state of Maine really helpful because it's very open and honest discussion.
Right.
And it's been very, very helpful.
Yeah. And at the very end of the year, the publication year, or when the books start to come in for that next, you know, so for the 2022 books, there's a celebration, usually in April, that started years ago, and you're both going this year. But it's virtual, right?
Yes.
So, but what happens when you go to that if it was live?
Oh God, when it was live, it was wonderful. I mean, there'd be booksellers there.
Remember the
or
guest speaker?
publishers,
I think the
the
year
guest
I went
speaker.
was Sharon Creech.
Yes.
And we had such lively discussions. I think that sometimes can go missing in the virtual,
Yeah.
and yet it's just so exciting that it continues. I mean,
Alex
we
Gino's
just-
going to be there this year,
Yeah.
which is going to be really, really
It's just gonna be
amazing.
wonderful.
So, but the fact that these books, you know, all these books are reviewed, and then you have to rate the book, and if it's a cream of the crop, when you review it, if you think it's really good, but then there's a smaller committee that they get together and they reread all of those books, and then they decide. And at the end of the year, you get a big list of books. And in the past, those books were circulated around the state, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So it's a little different now, but
And we have, instead of the Newbery Award, we have a award here in Maine that gets, you know, special recognition, and that's the Lupin Award.
yeah.
So that's mostly given to picture books, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think each state has a,
The Blue Bonnet,
Right.
like in Texas, and state awards.
yeah. So that's great that, you know, even individual states are celebrating their own writers, and
do.
I think we are one of the luckiest states in the country because we have so many gifted, between authors and illustrators.
It's
Oh my
crazy.
gosh, it's wonderful. It's a place people want to be. It's a
Yeah.
place that people want to have their books published in this state,
Yeah.
because of the the groupings of artistic and very talented people. And I was thinking back to what you were saying a minute ago about the Lupin Award, and I remember when I was in RSU 21, I was at the elementary school, that the school librarian would have a voting booth set up, and the children could come into the library. So here it's speaking to having children be part of this process, and they would cast their vote for whichever book they thought would be nominated or even winning the award. And the librarian would every Friday morning do a read aloud of one of the contenders, and then the children would have that experience of the read aloud, to see the artwork, to have conversations with their classroom teachers, and then be able to vote once that happened. Now, some of the littlest ones were a little feeling boo-hoo if their book didn't win. So along with the adults who feel boo-hoo that their book might not have won, it is quite an involved process, and I just love that the public schools took that on as well, to really involve the children, have them be a part of that award.
When I think back to some of my most favorite, and not even necessarily a Newbery Award, but some of my most favorite juvenile fiction, I would have to say it's the books that were read to me.
Yes.
Those are the ones that kind of stand out.
Yes.
Those are the ones I remember so vividly. And I think it was, I can't remember who had said this about even the connection that you all have with, what was your most favorite book? Well, they might not be able to give you the title of the book, but they remember who gave it to them.
Yes.
So I think for your jobs, that is, I think we're very blessed in this community to have the readers that we do, but also the fact that you make it so special every single time kids are upstairs. It's a real experience, and I think that award or not, I think that you do a great job in listening to the children to see what they want, and I can see sometimes when I'm up there, your wheels are spinning. Like you're thinking of like 5 or 6 books that you already know that you want to recommend to that child or to that family. So thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you.
So do you have a favorite Newbery or a couple of Newbery Award winners?
One of the ones that, I don't know, kind of another personal favorite is, I love Neil Gaiman. I do. And this book here, the Graveyard Book, it's quirky as can be. But I'll tell you, it's so inventive. It's really amazing. And I don't know, I'm not going to really book talk it here, but I mean, just read one little bit. He would be completely normal if he didn't live in a sprawling graveyard, being raised and educated by ghosts with a solitary guardian who belongs to neither the world of the living nor the dead. It's really good. I know, and it's not just for Halloween, but it's really a great book. And I know that the year that this was given the award, I think it was a little controversial as well. I think there were some people that thought maybe Neil Gaiman just had a little too much clout, maybe, and that maybe this wasn't. But again, I just think, it's kind of like saying when you watch like a show of fashion or something, and this is the award-winning fashion. I think this Newbery Award is so important, but I also feel like you have to put it in perspective.
That's
because
very good point.
Is it more important than the main student book awards that these local kids do? Or I mean, it's wonderful, and no, to the winner of this year, you deserve it. It's great, but just put it in perspective. It's great, but it doesn't mean that it's the only good book in the world to read.
That's right.
So
that's right, and I think I'm very glad you brought that up, because I think sometimes the can you imagine having somebody that says only read the books that have the medal on them?
Right.
Or, that have been...
We're all collectively shaking our heads like, what? No.
Exactly.
Because we're all so different, so...
Well, that's it.
If you're not a fantasy lover, but by the flip side, I challenge people, because this year's award-winning book is science fiction and Mexican folklore. If you think that doesn't speak to you, maybe it's time to give it a try.
Yeah.
It won the award this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Give it a try.
Yeah.
But again, you might not have checked it out, but it won the award. So the flip is,
And you're already starting to take reservations for those,
yes.
Yeah.
so we can have
Yes.
people call us or
Yes.
send us an email for
Absolutely.
Yes.
I believe that's on there.
that. That's great.
Yeah,
So.
for sure.
So I started collecting the Newbery Medal books way back when. I don't know why. I just thought it was. I think I like to collect things. I like to collect
How many do you have?
shells and.
How many Newberries do you
Well,
have?
I had.
Okay.
But what happened over time is I started to have nieces and nephews, and now great nieces and nephews. And so, so little by little, my shelf is getting smaller.
Yeah.
My adult shelves are getting bigger of things that I haven't read yet or like and want to have a copy.
For sure.
But those, I feel it's really important to, as I'm not going to say my age, but starting to share those
that's
some
nice,
of those
Mary
treasures with my
That's
family
wonderful.
members. So,
That's really nice.
and I think because we've all been fortunate to go to the children's celebration in April, reading roundup, sometimes we've actually had people autograph our
Yes.
books for us.
I have.
So-
I'm sure you have to.
And that's kind of fun too when you get to pass something like that along.
Yes.
God, it's hard to
so-
give those away, though, isn't it?
Yes, it is. A few of them have ended up in the Graves Library book sale, and it's not easy. But I know, and it's like, but as I'm thinking about myself, it's like, how long do you keep these without,
Right.
and you really do want to share them with
You
people.
do want to share them, and that brings us right back to the start with how long do we keep something on the shelf, and that's a question that
Yeah.
was popping up in all
Right.
the recent literature lately
Yeah.
about this 100-year celebration, and I think it deserves a place on the shelf for people to make their choices
Yeah.
based on their interests, or as you just said, Terry, which makes so much sense to me, give it a try. It might not be some genre that you gravitate to be comfortable and cozy when you're reading that a book
Yeah.
at home, but the graveyard book, I might just take that out because I have not read that. And I think that is so not something I've experienced
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
my reading world, and yet I'm intrigued. So hopefully others will feel the same way by having that variety, and we have a big variety here
Yeah.
at Graves.
Yeah,
the collection is
there
just
are a lot
amazing.
upstairs. Yeah.
Just amazing what we have upstairs.
Do you
So-
have a favorite Newbery?
I was thinking about Hitty. Do you remember when
Right.
she was? When that was 30s, maybe was that published? 40s.
And her 100 dresses?
Yeah. And it just, I can
Look up
remember
Kitty.
Caddy Woodlawn was another
Yeah.
one, and I believe that probably comes from my mother.
Aw.
My mother was she was a kindergarten teacher for years, a reader, lover of libraries, and as I started reading that 100 list of books, that so many of them didn't pop out, yet there were many that did, and I kept thinking, how would I have read that, or when did I read that?
Yeah.
And I think it was probably due to my mother
Yep.
of introducing me to that. So that still stays with me. So then that makes me think about connections, right? About that must have been just a huge connection to
Yeah.
have a parent sharing something they loved and wanted, like what you're doing, Mary Lou,
Yeah.
by sharing the books that you have.
Yeah.
Hitty, 1930.
1930.
Whoa.
But to connect on that
Yeah.
is one of our volunteers was telling me about one of the best books she's read recently, and it was a book about Rachel Field.
Okay.
Oh,
So
yes.
that's
Yeah.
on our
That's
list.
right. It is. I
We
know, I'm
forgot
looking
to
at
order
you.
it,
That's right.
but she said it was phenomenal. It was about Rachel Field.
She
so
did,
we
yes.
forgot about that. We got to get
Okay.
on that.
We'll circle that one.
So
It's
you've
hard
got the
work in a
entire
library.
list.
Yeah.
Yes.
And for anybody that wants that, we can print that off.
yes, we've got the entire
Easily printed.
list. The entire list for
And
you.
direct to someone. I know I saw somewhere online, it was was reading about the Newbery and getting ready for all this. And some schools or even some libraries are take the challenge and read the 100 books.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I was like,
wow.
oh, I think I could try that. I don't know, it might take me for a long time, but who knows?
And read them
It'd be
out of
fun.
order,
There
because
you
if
go.
you read the story of mankind and then you go to
And then
something
the
like that, That'd be kind of fun.
Wow.
Yeah, we sure would. It struck my mind.
The other thing, Mary Lou, is because the Newbery being 100 years old, but ALA also has all the 22 Youth Media Awards. So we've gone through, we've got the entire
Oh, that's-
list, and we've checked off all the books that we have. We're putting them on display.
That's
So
great.
if you're looking for some other award-winning books that for illustration or so many different categories,
Yeah.
come in, we'll have them all on display for
Oh,
you.
that's
So
great.
we have a lot of them,
That's great.
so that's good.
Well, this has been very enlightening. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
for
Thank you.
having
Thank
this
you.
discussion, and I hope this is the first of many, because I don't know about you, but I love to talk about children's books. I do know you love to talk about children's books, but
You do.
it is so much fun. So, so maybe in addition to Lynn likes, we can, we
Yes,
can we can do a few more of these.
Okay. Excellent.
So,
That would be
thank
great.
you.
All right,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for joining us for this very special edition of our programming. And we will hopefully have you back for another time soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks.